So here's the aluminum blade that they sent me. I'm going to go ahead and put this one on, but one thing I noted is, it's got these little slots in the blade itself. So I'm guessing that probably helps the aluminum from galling in the blades. At least I think that's what it's supposed to do. Again, this one's made in Japan, as the other one is, specifically designed for aluminum, because that's the only thing it says on there. So you wouldn't use this one for steel or wood or anything else. So I guess if you're cutting lots of aluminum chunks or plate or whatever you want to call it, this is the blade you'd use. Apparently they have blades for every type of material you could want. I'd be really interested to see how that stainless steel one works out, but maybe that's for another day. But let's go ahead and throw this on the machine and get this one ready to set, and then compare how the cut does against the standard blade. Okay, so we've got the aluminum blade on, as you can tell. It's got more teeth on it, so let's see if it does any better on this piece of aluminum. The standard blade did pretty well, so it's going to be hard to improve on that, so let's see what happens. Got the 707 one chucked up, and let's get started. Okay, right off the bat, that actually felt a little bit smoother actually. So let's see what happens. Really doesn't look like that much of a difference, honestly. Let me just see. Get that focused a little bit better. Let's see if we can focus that a little bit better. So there we go. So this is the side that we just cut, has a little burr on it, but does look a little bit shinier. As you can, I don't know if you can tell this, but the grain's a little bit smoother too. It's a little bit finer. So it looks like those having more teeth on there did a smoother cut than the other side, which was the standard blade. You can tell it's a little bit rougher, but I mean, really, that's not much of a difference. It did go through a lot smoother though. Not saying that the standard blade wasn't smooth, but this one just kind of, I didn't even feel anything. So, if you're cutting a lot of aluminum, the blade might be worth it to just get that one. I'm glad I got to try it out, so did pretty well. The only thing is, this one's only made for aluminum versus the other one's made for pretty much everything. So, let's go ahead and get this thing wrapped up, and I'll let you know my thoughts on this. Let me clean up a little, and I'll get back to you in a second. Okay, so we're done cutting everything that Evolution sent to us, along with some things they didn't. This all performed fine. It didn't have any issues, didn't stall out, didn't have any problems, cut through everything pretty much just as expected. So let's recap of what it did actually cut. Wood with nails, that goes through that without any problem. We've all seen the videos on this, so this was kind of a given that this wouldn't pose any problem. Harder woods like oak don't have any issue either. Very little tear out on the ends, which is kind of expected on this kind of blade. It's not specifically just a wood blade, it's for everything, so did really well there. PVC, the biggest thing with PVC is that you'd expect it to kind of just shred through it and chip up the edges, but it didn't have any problem there. Did a really good job here. Copper tubing, this isn't something I usually cut, but it went through that with no problem, so that's fine. Rebar, we've all seen this, and goes through this like butter. Aluminum, both the aluminum blade and the standard blade took this on without any issues, made really nice smooth cuts, no tear out, no nothing like that. Edges are nice and smooth and cool, they're not sharp, no real burrs, so I'm happy with this. Oh, of course, the heavy steel plate. It's about a 6-inch piece of steel plate. I think it's either 3/8 or I don't know if it's a quarter or what. It's a heavy piece of plate. It went through this much faster than I thought it would. So it was under a minute, I think, if probably just a minute. Was cool to the touch. The edges weren't sharp, no burrs really to speak of. So happy with this type of cut. What else did we cut? Oh yeah, the piece of rubber tube. Sorry, there's a piece of tape stuck to it now. Yeah, this went through. It went through this with no problem really, but again, don't use your saw to cut tubing. It just doesn't make any sense. It pretty much tore out all of the copper tubing out of this one inner tube. So use the correct tool for this. This was just a demonstration. It can go through this, but you'd probably use something else like a pair of pliers or some cable cutting tool to actually go through this. So again, this would be dumb to do this in real life, so don't bother. Let's talk about the blade. I took a look at this blade after taking it off to change it out with the aluminum one. I didn't see any issue here. The little carbide tips are still in place. None of them chipped out, none of them broke off. They're all still very sharp. I inspected the blade. There are no cracks, deformations, or anything unexpected here. So, you know, obviously this was just going through a few pieces of material, but you know, if there were any issues, they'd show up right now, especially when that plate's steel. So blade held up fine. How it holds up long term, that'll be something that I can evaluate later on, but for right now, good job. So let's see, let's talk about some of the things I didn't like about the machine. First thing is the fact that you have to assemble it right out of the box. I honestly just don't get that. I think that, you know, when the blade's in a locked position like this and you move it forward, it can be shipped in that box they sent out, or maybe just a little bit bigger box, you know, fully assembled. So I'm not really sure what the driver is for actually, you know, making the consumer assemble it. Maybe saves on some labor costs, I don't know. But that's just, it's not hard to assemble. It just takes a little bit of time, and you know, it's one of those things where I prefer it just straight out of the box ready to go. But that's just me, maybe I'm lazy. Second thing I did not like were these little things. The design on them isn't that good, to be honest. That being said, I do like this little piece. So this idea is pretty good as far as the stopgap. The little round tubes, when you put them into the actual machine here, first off, they don't line up very well. So sometimes you have to bend the bars a little to get them in place. And then second is the little screws that you use to lock them down with. There's only one on each end. So basically when you put this in, it can still cantilever a little bit. It has a little bit of wiggle room there, so that leads you to get kind of an inaccurate cut because it'll push your material off, and it's not the greatest thing in the world. If they put another screw on each end, maybe, to lock them down, that would be better. It'd also be better if this was kind of a square block or a hex block, something that can't, you know, kind of shift around. Honestly, I don't see myself using these in the future, but thank you for putting them in, but probably a little bit more design needs to go into that. What's the other thing? This isn't really that much of an issue. It's just something weird that everyone else on the web has kind of noted as well, and I saw it as it's with the laser level. So the laser level does actually cut accurately, but there is one little thing with it. When you go down, it seems like the laser line actually moves out of the way. So let me see if I can get a closer shot of that. As you get closer, it kind of, you can see it's jumping away. It's like it almost doesn't want to get cut by the blade. It does cut on the line, so it's not a big issue. It's just kind of one of those weird little quirks that don't really cause a problem. It's just something I noticed as I was cutting. The other thing I did note though, so I'll show you this, is the startup time between the time you pull the trigger and the blade spinning up. So let's take a look at that. So we'll look at that again. I'm going to click the trigger. So there's about a 1 to 1.5 second delay there. Usually I'm accustomed to, you just click the trigger and the power is instantly there. I'm not sure if that's designed that way just as some kind of feature, but it's a little bit weird to me. It's not really an issue, just, it's something to get accustomed to. Outside of that, the machine performed really well. I'm really happy with the cuts it made and with the materials it can go through. So it is very similar to the Rage 2, just in a smaller package. It's a little bit lighter to use, and so that means you can kind of lug it outside or lug it to your friend's house to a construction site to do a little bit more than you can with the Rage 2. Rage 2 is a little bit heavier, but it goes through metal like nothing. This one obviously you can use as a miter saw, so you can do things like trim work with it, get angled cuts a little bit more accurate than you can with the Rage 2, so that's a good thing. I looked this up online. The price right now is running about $199, which for this type of machine, for the amount of things it can do, I think that's a good value. If I didn't already have a miter saw, I would consider buying one of these, honestly. It works really well. The reviews online seem kind of mixed, but from what I've seen right now, it would do everything I would need it to do, and in a very small package. The blades themselves, like this one, run about anywhere from $35 to $45 depending on where you get it online, so they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but keep in mind that these are cutting through pretty much every material you need, so it's not a truly dedicated wood blade. I didn't look up how much the wood blades are, but if they're in line with the other brands, you could probably switch them out, because the Evolution Rage 3 allows you to use either a 1-inch arbor or a 5/8 inch arbor blade, so you have some flexibility there. Overall, as I said, it seems like it's a good value. I'm pretty happy with it. Again, full disclosure, I did get this free from Evolution to review because I did a review for them beforehand. There are some things I like about this, some things I don't like about it, but for the price point, I think it would be a good little buy for anyone that's in the market for a tool like this. If you needed a dedicated woodworking tool, there's probably other saws on the market that may be more refined for that purpose, but if you're kind of a general hobbyist like myself, I think this would actually fit more into my niche. Let's see what else is there. So just basically in closing, again, I think it's a good value. Again, thank you Evolution and Nicole at Evolution for sending this out to me. I do appreciate it. And again, this seems to me like it would be a good value for someone that's into this type of kind of work, just cutting various materials for their hobbies. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and you all have a good day.